All right, so I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Today's date is July 24th, 2025. If you would, please call the roll.
Burrell.
Here.
Fernandez. Kasinko. Here. Throckmorton.
Here.
Ballard.
Here.
All right, so we actually are in full attendance tonight. We do have, I'm sorry, did minutes go out? I didn't see those, did they?
Yeah.
Did everyone have a chance to see it? I didn't see it, so I'll abstain. Do I have a motion or changes to the minutes?
I'll move to approve the June minutes.
Second.
First and second, any comments or changes? Seeing none, let's go ahead and take the vote for approval.
Fernandez. Yes. Kasinko.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Abstain. I didn't read them.
Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We do have some petitions continued to our August 21st, 2025 meeting, and that is AA-17-22 Joe Kemp Construction and Blackwell Construction. Conditional use 33-24 for Hat Reynolds LLC, and variance -13-25 Carolina Lopez, or Lopes. I don't want to misspeak on that. Those are continued. Tonight, we will be hearing the following petitions: V-22-25 AutoVest LLC, V-26-25 All American Storage Sam Heel, V-29-25 Value Built Construction, and I believe it's Ernest either Kai or Zai, and conditional use -30-25 Steve and Sue McCracken. Is that correct on staff side? Those are the, okay, no changes, okay. Again, for those that are new, what we will be doing is we'll get a report, then the petitioner or petitioner's representatives can come forward. You'll have 20 minutes. That 20 minutes can be used on an initial presentation, or your time can be reserved and used after there's been questions and comments from both the board and the public, and it'll be used for a final presentation, and then there will be a motion and vote. Please be aware that those are your two primary times as a petitioner to speak. And when we do questions and answers, what we would ask is the board will ask either the petitioner or the staff questions, and we'd like you to then address those questions that are asked rather than take that opportunity to do more of a presentation. Please stay to the questions that we're asking. Those do not count against your time. Okay. With that, our first petition is the variance V-22-25, AutoVest LLC, and if we could, please give us a staff report.
Thank you. As manager, as mentioned, this is a request from AutoVest LLC for a property at 2130 South Walnut Street. The petitioner is here tonight to request several variances, including a variance from front parking setback requirement and landscaping standards in order to allow for the expansion of a vehicle display area for the use vehicle sales or rental in the mixed-use corridor zoning district. So specifically, the petitioner is requesting a variance from front parking setbacks in order to allow for new portions of the site to be used for parking, variance from tall canopy trees that are required within the islands within parking areas, a variance from the amount of shrubs that are required, a variance from the number of tall canopy trees that are required, and a variance from the required distance, maximum separation distance for street trees. So as I mentioned, this is at 2130 South Walnut Street. It's zoned mixed-use corridor. All the properties to the north and south are also zoned mixed-use corridor. To the west, you have property that is owned by Parks, and it's part of the switch yard. And then just to the east of this, you have Bloomington High School South, which is zoned mixed-use institutional. So the overall petition site encompasses several properties. One of those is an existing Kia dealership that is located on the south end of the site. The petitioner has acquired several properties to the north of that dealership, and will be looking to remove all of those buildings and parking areas to expand the display area for vehicles for sale for the Kia dealership. The property also has the Clear Creek on the west side of the property with its associated floodplain and riparian buffer, as well as a substantial amount of trees on that. The property in general is relatively flat along the east side of the site, and then there's kind of a steep drop-off as it drops down, and that's where you have all of the floodplain and the trees that are being preserved in the riparian buffer. So as I mentioned, the petitioner is requesting to expand this use on the site by removing all of the buildings and parking area to the north to allow for that to be converted to new display area. So in your packet, you do see a site plan, which is also again displayed on the screen here. So this incorporates several new islands within the site as required. Islands are required not more than every 10 spaces. Each of those islands is also required to have a tall canopy tree as well as 4 shrubs. So one of the variances that are being requested tonight, as I mentioned, is to not require each of those islands to have a tall canopy tree. Instead, the petitioner has shown those to be planted with the small species trees. They are showing all of the shrubs that are required within those islands, but they're requesting a variance to not require the tall canopy trees. The other 2 variances that they're requesting in regards to landscaping involve the total number of shrubs that are required. With this petition, the petitioner is showing a total of 323 parking spaces, so that would require a total of 969 shrubs. With the 323 parking spaces, they are also required 81 tall canopy trees. So those canopy trees and those shrubs have to be within a certain distance of the parking area in order to count towards the parking lot landscaping requirements. Given the location or the areas that they have available to utilize for parking, they are requesting a variance to not require the full amount of shrubs. So they're requesting to allow 454 shrubs versus the 969 that would be required, and a variance to allow 24 tall canopy trees rather than the 81 tall canopy trees that are required. The other variance that I mentioned they are requesting is from the maximum spacing for street trees along the front. The UDO says that tall canopy trees are required along a street not more than 30 feet from center. The petitioner, due to several utility lines along here, are utilizing a small medium tree, which are fine, but the UDO says that if you're using the smaller species tree, that the street trees can't be more than 15 feet from center. So they are requesting a variance from that 15 feet to allow for them to be 40 feet on center. So with that, one of the conditions of approval that we have proposed, and I'm showing it on this exhibit here just to have a visualization of what we're proposing and what is being shown in the site plan. As I mentioned, the petitioner is requesting a variance from the number of tall canopy trees that are required. And we've seen this with several car dealership uses, and they've explained the challenges with those tall canopy trees in relation to the area that is being displayed or that is carrying the cars for display. And so we've certainly acknowledged some of those challenges. However, along the front, along the Walnut Street frontage, there is a pretty significant gap between the parking area and the sidewalk. It's about 15 feet, so that does provide enough area to have that separation to allow the tall canopy trees. So one of the conditions of approval that we've included is that an additional 10 tall canopy trees be included along that front. Since there is a lot of room there to get those in and still have the separation, we did feel was appropriate. Also in this exhibit here, I've shown the spacing for the street trees. The petitioner is requesting to have a 40-foot separation versus the 15. So again, we are recommending denial of that particular variance, but I'll talk about that in just a second as I step through the criteria. But I just wanted to point out those 2 elements there on that exhibit so that the board can kind of see what we were looking at in relation to the requests. So with that, all variances are required to be evaluated on 3 criteria. The first is that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. In regards to the street tree separation, we did find negative findings in that regard. Obviously, the requirement to have street trees and spacing along there is to create a uniform design along streets. Having a 40-foot separation between small and medium trees is a lot larger than obviously what the code allows for, and creates significant gaps, which would require this or enable this property to be a lot different in terms of a uniform streetscape along a street that we would want to see. So we did make negative findings in that regard. We did not make, or were not able to find any other negative impacts in relation to the other 4 requested variances, in relation to the approval being injurious, in relation to the use and value of the area adjacent to the property that would possibly be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Again, we did not find any negative impacts, adverse impacts on the uses or values adjacent to the property for these requested variances. As I mentioned or alluded to a little bit, the site has a substantial amount of landscaping on the west half of the site that's heavily planted with trees and other understory vegetation. So the lack or the variance request to have less landscaping around some of the perimeter of the area and on the site as a whole is somewhat offset by the large amount of vegetation. Going back to the aerial, almost half of the site is encumbered by that floodplain of Clear Creek and the trees and the riparian buffer and steep slope. So the petitioner is pretty much utilizing the only developable area that is left on the site, the east half of the site, to utilize for the additional display area. So given the amount of vegetation that is on the remainder of the property, we did not find any adverse impacts, as I mentioned, on the adjacent use and value. And then the third criteria, that the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, and that the practical difficulties are peculiar to the property in question. There are separate findings, obviously, for each of those in relation to the requested variances. In regards to the landscaping for the street tree spacing separation requirement, we did not find any peculiar conditions that prevent them from meeting the spacing requirements. There are no topographic challenges, no infrastructure improvements that don't allow the trees to be closer, no drainage features, or any other inherent characteristics that present a practical difficulty or a peculiar condition that prevent the street trees from being closer together and meeting the code requirements. In regards to the minimum number of shrubs and trees that are required, both on the parking lot perimeter as well as within the island. We did find peculiar conditions in relation to the amount of property that is actually developable and the location of the building that prevent parking spaces from being installed that would meet setback requirements. So the location of the building, as well as all of the environmental constraints and the amount of developable areas, certainly present some peculiar conditions for the property that do present a practical hardship in meeting some of those landscaping requirements. However, as I mentioned, we did find or see that there is space along the front that you can still install tall canopy trees immediately adjacent to the parking area or relatively close that do fulfill a lot of the desires of the landscaping ordinance in terms of shading asphalt and parking areas. So we did identify that they can put in more trees along the front where there are none shown now. And so as I mentioned, we do have a condition of approval to that regard. And again, with the front parking setback, I did mention that the location of the building presents a challenge in installing parking as well as all the environmental constraints. So we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and approve the variances from the number of shrubs required, the number of tall canopy trees required, the requirement for tall canopy trees within the islands, and parking setback, but deny the variance for the required street tree separation with the 4 conditions that are listed in staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
At this time, we'll ask either the petitioner, the petitioner's rep, or the petitioner's representatives to come forward. If there's going to be more than one person speaking, I'd like to go ahead and swear them all in at the same time, even if they're going to come back later. If it's just one, sign in. Once you've signed in, just state your first and last name, and then I'll swear you in.
Daniel Butler, Bynum Fanning and Associates.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You have 20 minutes. What you do not use will be reserved for later.
All right. Thank you for hearing our case. We're back with a similar kind of project that I think you heard a couple months ago, doing a type of dealership. So this type of thinking, this type of use, and so we have similar variances, similar kind of things that we're asking for, a little bit different than what you heard in the past. So I'll try my best to kind of describe the process. This particular project kind of refurbishes an area that needs it, and you've probably driven by there many times, and it's old businesses that have been sitting, vacant for quite some time, and so it's an exciting project in that sense to have. It'll be a brand new pavement, everything with new landscaping, new islands. And, some of the code that is written into the ordinance, we really believe was written in with the intention of, commercial businesses. And so we're asking, when we were working with staff over the last few months and just trying to think about what's reasonable, because we don't want a traditional parking lot or a traditional dealership that you've probably driven by many times where it's only a sea of impervious. That's not what we're going for, and that is not what Bloomington's about, and we understand that. So we've adhered to all the landscaping standards, all the parking standards that you'd see in a normal commercial business, and then we narrowed it down to some variances for you to hear tonight. And so the staff is recommending approval on 3 of those, so I want to focus on just one of them, the one that is being recommended for denial, and kind of describe why that doesn't really work for this and does create a practical difficulty for this type of use. So when we did the dealerships to the south of this particular one, we had a similar request, and what differentiates this property from the one that you heard a couple months ago is that approximately half of the property in the back will be preservation area and won't be touched, meaning that we'll have preserved, trees and vegetation back there in perpetuity and not to be touched. So that's one upside with this property that you didn't get at the last one, and we plan on preserving that. Along with that, coming to a consensus or a compromise a little bit on the north side of our property where it's not advantageous, it's not good, as you probably recognize, for there to be large canopy trees right next to all these spots will be filled with display vehicles and not vehicles that be running or regularly be, dripping, oil on a regular basis because they won't, there'll be new cars for the most part. And so we are putting in large canopy trees on the north side of the property too, and trees throughout the parking lot, but we're asking for those to be small. Now, when people are driving by right now on Walnut, the properties to the south are spaced at 40 feet on center street trees. So this would not be this would be within what's already out there along the other dealerships, so we're not asking for anything. Actually, along some of that area, there are a few places where I think they've, don't have any. So we're not asking to do none in regards to street trees that are along Walnut. We understand the importance of that, the look of that, the type of corridor that we want in Bloomington, but we're asking for there to be a compromise and a practical difficulty of seeing into the property. Every 15 feet on center, it's over time, you won't be able to see into this, and that's not a good thing, and we feel like it's practical difficulty for this particular type of use. Now, he's also recommending a condition that we would also ask you not to take in adding 10 more trees along that same frontage, so mixed with 10 extra canopy trees right next to display vehicles, is along with the 15-foot on center street trees, that creates a lot of green that would not be able to see in as well. And so we're asking for your consideration on that particular piece. I don't think there's anything else that I want to mention at this time, but I focused on probably the one that is being recommended for denial, but any of them that you want to discuss or have questions on, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
Thank you. And you'll have about 15 minutes left, and I do want to commend you on focusing on the one thing that was in dispute. That's very refreshing, and I appreciate that, which is the item that we do need to focus on. So thank you for that. It's back to the boards for questions for the staff or the petitioner. You may want to just stay there. Any questions?
Question, what he's referencing, Eric, with the Jeep dealership there, those are at 40. Was that done as a variance? You said you came before the board?
Yeah, I'm sure that was part of the variance request for that dealership. However, variances obviously are never precedent setting. We evaluate each request in and of itself. And so again, as I mentioned in the report, we certainly understand their desire, but, the variance criteria is that there is some peculiar condition that prevents somebody from doing something that provides a practical difficulty. So that was where we were challenged with, is we did not see any peculiar conditions that prevented them from being closer.
Okay. And follow up that real quick. How many tall canopy trees are they wanting to put, and how many are you requiring with the 10 extra? You're saying 10 additional canopy trees?
Yeah, so their request is to have 47, I believe, tall canopy trees, 24, rather than the 81 that are required. And yes, we certainly recognize that there is a substantial amount of preservation on the west end of the property. However, all landscaping has different purposes, different accomplishments. So tall canopy trees within certain area of asphalt, accomplishes something different than just biomass on a property. The trees within a certain area of parking area shade that area, helps prevent a lot of the heat island effect that we're all experiencing, and is discussed in a lot of documents. And so having those along that area, presented an opportunity. We certainly recognize some of the other constraints, but there is area to get that along the front, and so that seemed appropriate to have a recommendation to have those 10 additional along the front.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. So the 41, this question is for Eric. So the 41 tall canopy trees, when you say those are in the parking lot, not in the front, correct? Not in the front lot.
So a lot of those, and let me jump back to the landscape plan.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Some of those are based on existing trees that they're preserving along the north side of the property. Some of those are being placed along the west ends of the property. There's a sanitary sewer easement and sewer line that runs along the west side that prevents that location from being utilized. So the area that they really have available is really limited, so that's why we were looking at that even a little bit closer to say, hey, there are trees that could be planted here. Some of the other trees that they're showing are outside that 10-foot area. But most of them are along that north property line and a little bit on the west. So we're really trying to look at optimizing the little amount of land that we can get in to have some more tall canopy trees.
Is it correct that the whole preservation area has several tall canopy trees?
We don't have an inventory of the trees that are actually in that area. I would imagine that there are certainly a substantial amount of those that would be species that are identified as a tall canopy tree species. But again, as I mentioned, different landscaping has different purposes based on where it is. Some of it's just getting living materials on a site, and then other landscaping has different purposes in terms of shading and shielding parking areas.
Okay. My last question then is to the petitioner. So is it a peculiar condition that if you have those tall canopy trees in the front landscape area, would that be harmful to your product that sits there? I'm talking about the cars that will be sitting on display, I guess.
That is correct. We believe over time to have them where he's asking for them. There would be danger of, branches, leaves on a regular basis. Very difficult on a dealership with display vehicles to have large canopy trees. And again, I just want to reiterate, we have made a compromise, our owners made a compromise to do that already on the north side of the property to help buffer, someday if a restaurant or whatever reutilizes that particular property, which is not, it's vacant right now. And so we feel like we already have compromised on that side, and we are doing, I think, about 13 large canopy trees on the north side of the property, brand new ones. And so we're asking, we didn't want to ask for that too, and so we're asking for mainly along the display from Walnut.
Now, would you be, but you will still have some tall trees in the front, or are they all going to be smaller, and you want them 40 feet on center?
That's correct. We actually cannot have the street trees any bigger than the small, because there are overhead lines there, and they won't allow us to have the large canopy there. So the only choice is, if we were to follow the current code, it would be 15 feet on center for small trees, and so we would still like to do something, and so we're asking for 40 feet on center, and that lined up with what we had previously, years ago, received to the south for that
Okay.
dealership.
Okay, thank you.
For you, about, okay, so I'm looking on the Google Maps, and there's no consistency with each dealership for the trees in the front line. And for being new on the zoning board, so I guess, why would I don't know, is it Ford, or what have you, they have 0 or 1? They have 1. And then, I guess, is it at different times that people are coming to get variances, and when at the time of the year they build, depending on the variance for what is required?
Yeah, so the street tree separation was a little bit different. It was 30 feet on center, or I'm sorry, 40 feet on center, when the dealership, and I think you're talking about the ones further to the south of this. The street tree separation was a little bit different at that time, and they came forward with a request of their own. It was unique, and the board heard certain arguments and conditions, and there was discussion about that. But as I mentioned, variances are not precedent setting. We don't want to establish a trend of that. Each one is evaluated on its own merits. And certainly deserves to be rediscussed. Just because something was done on one property 10 years ago doesn't mean we're stuck with that on every property along that corridor for the rest of our lives.
Thank you.
And that does go to repeating. We say that almost nearly every meeting, which is just because something has happened on a previous variance request, that's not precedence. We don't work on precedence. We work on the individual peculiar circumstances of each property. So thanks for that question. Any others before we go to the public? Okay, I saw someone check in. Is there someone online who, I see chat indicators? Anyone online that would like to speak on behalf of the public?
If there's anybody online, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat. We can recognize you. I'm not seeing anybody else online.
Okay. I know sometimes it takes a second. All right. Seeing no one, then we are back to the petitioner. Do you have any final comments that you'd like to make, or would you like to just go to questions and answers?
I'm certainly fine with questions and answers. I think that we do understand your comment about setting a precedent, and understand. I just want to remind everyone that had previously been received, and it will have probably a similar type of look, and we're not interested in no trees along there. We're interested, we still understand the need for the type of look that Bloomington's looking for, and so we thought that this would be a good compromise and still allows this type of use to flourish in this area, but have this type of look along that corridor, and so it would require variance in that case.
Very good, thank you. We are back to the board for action. We could have further questions if you have those of the petitioner or of the staff. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion.
I'll just make a quick comment. I understand the setting precedent, but also it's a benchmark. I think we can have to use in this case as a visual. And if I'm looking at that Google Street Map and I'm picturing 40 feet at that Jeep dealership, and you're saying another 2 trees relatively in between where they are right now, Eric, do you know how tall those trees would get? Is there, I mean, I know that's not,
Yeah, no, the small, medium trees usually in about 15, 20-foot range,
okay.
whereas a tall canopy tree would be more in the 80, 60, 70, 80-foot range. So I'll just point out, the tall canopy trees, those species, those get very tall. And also, those species drop off all of their limbs over time. So, when you're looking at these trees 30 years from now, 40 years, 50, 60, 70, you're going to be able to see right through the understory because those trees have grown above everything else. They're shading the parking lot like they're supposed to do. And so you're not going to have any visual obstructions, through the understory like you would, kind of foresee.
Okay, thank you.
So, question to the petitioner. So with the tall trees, we're going to have limbs falling, leaves, nuts, everything on top of the cars. And even though as they grow and get taller, then visually, yes, I agree with Eric, you'll be able to see through easier because the canopy rises. But still, the debris is the issue that is that the issue that you're concerned?
Yeah, there's two. One is a recommendation. He put a recommendation as a condition, and those are to add 10 more trees, and so we're asking not to do that piece, and that would be those 10 canopy trees along that walnut corridor, and then the other piece would be smaller trees, 15 feet on center, and over time, a lot of those smaller type trees will not do what he's describing. Those would be within that visual, because a lot of those types of trees are, smaller, grow outward, less tall, not as much growth. And so there'd be two concerns, each dealing with, one is the condition and the other one is the variance.
Any further questions? If not, we'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion. I can't find the number.
It's on page 9.
Yeah, to approve V-22-25, to approve all variances and remove number 3 from the recommendations. A total of 10 tall canopy trees are required along the property frontage. And for the third condition, peculiarity, will be the type of business that's established that will be established there. Basically to say that the tall canopy trees might harm the inventory of this commercial property.
I have a motion, just one slight thing. I would take out the language of the precedent we've set and just stick with the peculiar, which was it could damage.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Yes. Okay, good. So we have a motion to approve with the negation of item number 3 due to the possibility for damage to the inventory. Do I have a second?
You will also need to make positive findings for variance condition number 1. The approval will not be injurious because we did make negative findings to that regard.
Sorry, I thought that was a positive. I thought I saw.
No, so we said that the granting of the variance to not require street trees every 40 feet is expected to be injurious to the public health safety, so you'll need to make positive findings for that.
So do we just add a not injurious?
Sure, but as a matter of procedure, we do need to have those findings stated.
Anyone have language?
I
misread that, Eric. I thought that that was clear in item number 1, right? That it wouldn't be injurious. Which one did I miss there? The first, second, third?
The very first one, landscaping street trees. So this is under the section, the approval will not be.
Oh, is expected. I thought it said is not expected. That's,
Yeah, mine, it says, to not require tree, okay.
You could just insert not in front of injurious on line 2
Yes.
and put a period after community on line 3 and strike the rest of the sentence.
does that meet our needs, Eric?
No, I got it.
Okay, that meets it.
Does that
Okay.
work?
Yes.
Second.
So I have a second. Any further discussion on that? So once we take the vote, approval, a vote of yes would be to approve the variance with the changes to item number 1 with the notation and item number 3 being removed due to the injury to the petitioner. If no further discussion, we'll go ahead and call the question.
Kasinko? Yes. Throckmorton?
Yes?
Ballard?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes,
Fernandez?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Congratulations. Thank you for your time. Good luck. Okay. Next one starts on page 18 for those following along in the packet. This is V-26-25, Sam Heel. Could be Healy. We'll find out soon enough. Can I have a staff report?
Okay, let's see, why is that so weird? Okay. Jackie Scanlon, Assistant Director, Planning and Transportation. Let's see here. Okay, the request before you tonight is for a property located, has two address, 2401 and 2501 North Walnut. Let's let this person in. The request is a development standards variance request for a determinate sidewalk variance for a portion of the required pedestrian facilities in the mixed-use corridor zoning district. So some of you will remember that we saw this property last year. And so it contains All-American Storage on kind of old Business 37 on North Walnut on the west side of the road. So they received variances for setbacks on the north property line and for the pedestrian facilities that they needed to build on North Old State Road 37 at the bottom of the hill. They did request a variance for pedestrian facilities along North Walnut as well for about 140 feet there, and that variance was denied at that time. So again, this is the property, currently contains a self-storage unit, and the Cascades Inn is immediately to the north and residential to the east, and then Cascades Park to the west. So the petitioner would like to build a new building, so that triggers full compliance for the property. Here's kind of a more eagle-eyed view of the property. You may note last year when we saw this petition, the property line was not in this shape. There was some discussion about this property, and we found a right-of-way dedication done to the state at some time back, so we worked with the auditor's office, and this is the correct property line. So their property line kind of veers off here a little bit. But because of the wording in the UDO, they are required to build the pedestrian facility to the end of their property line that is between the property and the road. So on this portion of the property, this is about 450 feet. They are building the path will build the path that is in the transportation plan. And so you can see that this area is obviously pretty flat and not a lot of physical barriers there to meeting the requirement at that location. The issue is when we get to the southern portion. So this year, they are requesting a determinate sidewalk variance for 108 feet. So after last year's denial, they kind of went back, worked with their engineering team to get a better idea. Let's see, can I make this bigger? I do not like this new screen setup. Okay, just a sec, let me see. To kind of get an idea of what exactly is there and if it's possible. So this petition was on the agenda for June. We had worked with the staff of the Planning and Transportation Department, had worked with the Engineering Department, and also our long-range staff to kind of talk about, would it be possible to put this path in if it was moved further east? The engineering staff did think that was possible, and it's obviously desirable for us, for long-range planning, for pedestrian connections. But then we had this exhibit, they were able to respond to us right at the time of the June hearing, so that's why the petition was continued. And so it's this portion here, this 108 feet that they're requesting the variance for. And the reason being that there is steep slope at this location. And I think I did not spell this out well enough in the staff report, but additionally, the way that we get public facilities in the right-of-way that aren't just built by the city is through private development. So in this case, for All American Storage, they're building the required pedestrian facilities from the transportation plan because they are building a brand new building. And so typically properties are abutting other private properties. And so it's kind of like a domino effect. If they build theirs, then the guy next to it, he goes to redevelop, he builds his. In this case, there's almost 250 feet of publicly owned property or right-of-way between the end of their property and the next private property. So you can kind of see this blue line here. And so if they built theirs to this location, which would be just north of the roadway across Walnut, we are still responsible as the city for the next 245 feet before it hits another private property. So when we were looking at it that way and talking to the engineering department, because of the slope constraints here at this particular location, so again, the part they're requesting the variance for is in here where it starts to get redder, which these are 2-foot contours, and that is why there is a railing along here now, a guardrail, because it drops off quite a bit. It was determined by the engineering department, and again, in consultation with long-range transportation in the planning department and development services, that it would probably make more sense to have that all designed as one piece than to have their 108 feet and then our additional linear footage at some time in the future, because there will probably need to be some substantial changes here to put that path in, more than I think we were able to determine based on the information we had at the last hearing. So the department, based on the findings of fact in the staff report and those I have said here tonight, the department recommends that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings and approve this variance with the condition that a zoning commitment for the determinate sidewalk variance must be recorded and submitted prior to the approval of the building permit they'll need for their new building. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you. As to the petitioner, do we have a single or two? If so, I'll have you both come forward. Both sign in. I'll have you both say your first and last names, and then we'll swear you both in.
Don Kacharik with Smith Design Group.
Thank you.
Sam Heel with All American Storage.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, you have up to 20 minutes. Again, what you don't use will be reserved for final comments.
I don't have a whole lot to add. Thank you, Jackie. That was a good presentation. There's some pictures in the report that show kind of the conditions, one facing kind of towards Big Red Liquors, and you can see the guardrail on the right-hand side. And then there's a couple others where they're from down below, and I had to actually traverse from Cascades Park up to get to it because it's too steep to kind of get down. But there's a lot of large, loose boulders and rock outcroppings just kind of there, and it'd just be extremely difficult and expensive to build this portion. And we have on the plans, we have the remaining 400 or so feet that they are willing to build. We're just asking for this portion. So, any questions for me or Sam?
I don't have anything to add at this time. We'll just save for questions.
Very good. I'll kick things off. I can make it easy. Most of what you're addressing me because I'm the one that asked you to look at it. So I remember this case very well. First of all, I want to thank you for doing what we asked, which was look at it, because I knew when the request was made that this might be a possibility, that we didn't know what was down there, and it did need to be examined because, again, the welfare of Matlock Heights, where they have increased traffic between there and the motel because of the new bar that opened, et cetera. So thank you for that. I have actually no problems because that's all I asked for, and they're not going to ask for a removal of the rest of it. So the neighborhood can still cross over and use the sidewalk, which was the critical thing. So that's my comments. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the public for comments.
Zoom, you can use the raise hand function or send a message to the host if you have a comment on this petition. Nothing on Zoom.
Nothing on Zoom. Back to the petitioner. Do you have any final comments? Okay. So it's back to the board for action. I'll speed things up by saying I move for approval to adopt the proposed findings, approve case V-26-25 with the following condition of a zoning commitment for the determinate sidewalk variance must be recorded and submitted prior to the approval of a building permit.
I second.
I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Yes.
I have a question. Does the city have any actual plans to build the sidewalk to the south?
I don't think that there are imminent plans right now. It is part of the transportation plan. So I think if development happened to the south, then that might be an impetus to get that connection going, but I don't think there's anything right now.
It's a tough area.
Yeah, and I don't know, John, if you were you here with this last one? Okay, so, most people know I live in that neighborhood, and I've commented about how it's been effective because every development that's happened, they've added a sidewalk. So there's very little that doesn't have access, and it's mainly that one section because of how close that topography cuts into the road. But other than that, the issue of Matlock Heights being able to move northward on the sidewalk was really critical, so. Any other comments? Call the question.
Throckmorton,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes,
Fernandez, Kasinko.
Yes.
Congratulations, passes 5-0. Thank you for doing the work that the board requested. That was that's exactly what we kind of look for, and I appreciate that. So, best of luck.
Thank you for your time.
You too. Okay. For those following along, we're on page 38. This will be V-29-25, and let me get the details. And the details are, this is Value Built, Inc., and it's to the staff for a report, please.
Thank you. Eric Krulik, Development Services Manager. So this is a request from Value Built, Inc. For a property at 1017 East Aaron Court. The petitioner is here tonight to request a variance, determinate sidewalk variance more specifically, in relation to the construction of a new single-family house on this residence. The property is zoned single-family residential or residential medium lot, R2. As I mentioned, the property is vacant and the petitioner is looking to construct a new house on the property. There is a sidewalk along Azalea Drive that is along the south side of the property. And the UDO requires that when you have construction of a new house on a classified street, you are required to install the required pedestrian facilities along that street. Since this property has frontage on two streets, it's a corner. It has Aaron Court on the west side and Azalea on the south side. With the construction of the new home, they are required to install pedestrian facilities and tree plot along both frontages as per the transportation plan. So the transportation plan requires a 7-foot sidewalk and an 8-foot tree plot along Azalea, which is what they're requesting a determinate sidewalk variance for tonight. They would be installing the sidewalk and street trees along Aaron Court, but they are requesting relief from that sidewalk requirement in order to allow for the existing facility, which you can see here, to remain along Azalea. So the current facility along Azalea is a 4-foot wide sidewalk with a 5-foot tree plot. As I mentioned, the transportation plan would require a 7-foot sidewalk and an 8-foot tree plot along Azalea. In addition, the engineering department was able to go out and evaluate the sidewalk. There were a lot of panels that were deemed to be far above the cross slope allowance for ADA accessibility. So a majority of that sidewalk was deemed to be not functionally compliant in that regard. And so it would have to be removed. So the petitioner is requesting the determinate sidewalk variance in order to allow for the existing facility to remain. If the variance was granted, they would still have to replace those panels that were deemed to be out of compliance. But in terms of having to bring it into full compliance, the determinate sidewalk variance would apply in that. So in regards to the criteria and findings, the first one, that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. When you have a new construction on a property, and especially in a single-family neighborhood when everything is built out, you have very few opportunities to get compliant facilities in. So this is the only opportunity to get a compliant facility on this property. And so requiring the sidewalk to come into compliance with the full 7-foot allows for facilities here that are in compliance with the transportation plan that looks for what we want to accomplish in the neighborhoods. So we did find that this would be injurious to the public health, safety, and moral general welfare, in that the wider facility does improve safety, has a greater tree plot, which improves safety as well. And so we did make negative findings in that regard. We did not find any negative impacts on the use and value of the properties adjacent to this. However, again, with the third criteria, that the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property, and that the practical difficulties are peculiar to the property in question. We did not find any peculiar conditions about the property that prevented a compliant sidewalk from being installed. There are no topographic constraints, no infrastructure constraints, no environmental features. So we were not able to find any peculiar conditions about the property that would allow us to make findings in that regard as well. So with that, we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and deny the requested variance. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. To the petitioner, do we have a petitioner or petitioner's representative? Please come forward. And when you come forward, if you would sign in and then state your first and last name for me, please.
Hello, I'm Ernest with ValueBuilt, petitioner.
Okay, and do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
You have up to 20 minutes. Whatever you don't use now, you can use later before a motion is taken.
Sounds good. I doubt I'll use the 20 minutes. Thank you, Eric, for presenting that. So essentially, we're here seeking relief from the transportation plan and the required pedestrian facilities as the transportation plan state. Since so just give a little backstory. Essentially what we do is we try to basically build spec homes that provide workforce housing primarily. We don't really do any of the higher end homes, so we're looking for homes that kind of target the $350,000 to $400,000 price range. We built probably a couple hundred homes over the last 5 or 6 years. A lot of them in Ellettsville. So when this lot came on the market, it was in a neighborhood we built before in a couple different times. And we saw it, liked the lot, and thought it would be, a good addition to the neighborhood to add roughly a 1,400 square foot ranch over a walkout basement, on this lot that's conducive for the walkout. So when we're looking at, trying to target a price point around like $380,000, $390,000, and then we go through the permitting process and find out that this sidewalk that we thought was good and that we would add on to go from that sidewalk to the house would have to be replaced with a 7-foot sidewalk. That kind of stopped us in our tracks, and that's why we're here seeking relief from that. just because that $20,000 replacement of sidewalk essentially either, gets added to the price of the home or, it basically is the entire margin of a project like that. So we just wouldn't do it, we'd just sell the lot and move on. So that's why we're here today. Every project's a little bit different. Some of the projects that we do really have a lot of room to, create pedestrian facilities. The thing is, the transportation plan changes, every, changes, and it's not, the UDO is something that we look at and, try to plan on, but not usually when we're looking at single-family homes, and not usually something that we consider, having to replace 140 feet of sidewalk, when we're building something. So that's basically all I've got.
Thank you. We're back to the board for any questions at this point.
I have a question. On it looks like part of the sidewalk has been replaced more recently on Azalea.
Yeah, it's not original.
I'm sorry, please step, sorry.
I didn't know if staff was answering that or.
That's okay. You have something to
Oh, yeah.
contribute, and
It's
it wasn't asked
definitely-
anyone. Go ahead.
Oh, it's not original, but I don't know how old it is.
How wide is the current sidewalk?
So the current sidewalk is 4 feet wide.
The only question I have is that image in the packet where there's the offset. Could you explain that? Whose image is that? Is that your image?
No.
Where it has the offset from where it meets? It's on page 44?
I'm so sorry, I thought I was sharing here.
Yeah, on page 44. That wasn't brought up, was it? I missed that. Okay. What is that there to represent? Because I see the old sidewalk in the upper right corner, and then I see this white section.
I think that's
Was that your
meant-
picture?
That is.
Okay.
So that is meant to represent like the jog from the current sidewalk, because the tree plot changes, goes from a 4-foot tree plot to an 8-foot tree, 5-foot tree plot to an 8-foot tree plot. So the entire sidewalk gets moved over.
Just out of curiosity, Eric, can that sidewalk meet or?
Yeah, so what that exhibit is showing there on page 44, and what the petitioner is trying to say, would be an offset if the sidewalk were to be placed, at the back end of the right-of-way line. But in those situations, we work to try to merge those together in a way that is PRO-AG required or PRO-AG compliant. So it would not be an offset. There would be a transition point where they would merge together.
So if this were to go through and have to be built, there'd be a tapering?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And that would be on this property, not the other property? The tapering?
There is right-of-way on the adjacent property, but more than likely, we would minimize, removing existing facilities on the adjacent frontage. So it'd probably be mostly on this, but that's something we'd coordinate with the engineering department. It would probably be relation to maybe any broken panels on the adjacent one, but, we'd
Well,
work through that.
I think the question I have is, I want to make sure, it'll go to a point I'm going to make later, which is, that's an older neighborhood and things may possibly change, and so therefore the next property may need to have a change to the sidewalk. And I just want to make sure that the sidewalk, whatever the end point is before it tapers, is at such a point that if the next neighbor is required to change the sidewalk, that they don't do a taper and then a taper back out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a stupid little silly thing, but I just want to make sure something like that wouldn't happen, correct?
Right, so on this property here, you would have 90%, 95% of it that would be at the appropriate location, and then it would have a taper, so if something happened on the adjacent property, then it would match this one, and so you'd be deleting that taper, because the whole thing would be uniform.
Exactly. Thank you for that. I know that's just a little thing, but that depends on what the outcome of this petition is, so thank you. Any other questions?
My question is to Eric. You mentioned that the existing sidewalk has some areas that need to be replaced or repaired.
Yeah, so they'd have to be replaced. So the engineering department went out and they measured the cross slope as well as, ascertained the condition of the concrete. So a lot of those had the side slopes that were greatly exceeded the 2% cross slope that's allowed for ADA accessibility.
Are you talking about that the concrete pads have moved?
Yes. Yeah, so the panels, they had separated, moved.
Separated and moved and created,
Yeah, so the sidewalk, is probably 30 years old. So obviously over that length of time, you've had a lot of movement of the ground, freeze and thaw. And so that's just kind of contributed to the degradation of the sidewalk panels.
my other question is, so if you have an 8-foot tree plot and then you have a 7-foot sidewalk, I mean, does that mean he's going to be against the front setback for the building?
Yeah, so the setback of the building is not measured in relation to the sidewalk.
It's
From
measured to the-
Azalea, it's measured from the center line
From
of
the
the
center
road.
of
So
the
the
road.
location of the building wouldn't change with the sidewalk location.
Just a quick question, and this kind of relates, but, so you're saying they're willing to do it on Aaron Court, put sidewalk through there? Yes. Is that okay, does that make, I call it the question because does that make any sense to have a sidewalk going into a cul-de-sac area? Because that just connects to a driveway that would connect to, like, it doesn't make sense to me that anybody in there would rebuild and then say, let's connect over existing driveways. I don't see the logic in that. Can you explain why that would be a requirement in this particular situation?
Yeah, so there's no exemptions for cul-de-sacs or situations where it only connects to one other property. Anytime you've got a property frontage with new construction, and in this case here, because the sidewalk is required along Azalea, it's also required to extend along the adjacent properties. So both property frontages have to have a sidewalk because there is one that is present on Azalea. So the petitioner just chose not to request a variance from an Aaron Court. Certainly they could have, but they elected not to request a variance from Aaron.
Okay, because that would, to me, make more sense to have it exempted from there, connecting the driveways that nobody's going to use versus this, but that's just,
I would also be open to that. The drivewalk,
Well, no.
the sidewalk on Aaron is an intense sidewalk, and with the grade especially, but.
Yeah, so that was not part of the petitioner's request, unfortunately, or what we can hear tonight. So, if the petitioner wants to modify the request, we can continue it and hear it again next month.
The other thing that you bring up with that is there any way, again, for the city to allow just a addition to the existing sidewalk to bring it within the required width, without having a total rebuild? I see head shaking. Is that a no? I saw your head nod. Is that a yes? Is it a no?
I am so
They
sorry.
cannot
Was there-
just, the city will step forward.
Sorry.
Recognizing
Jackie
Jackie
Scanlon,
Scanlon.
Assistant Director. No, we haven't had a lot of that. It's a rare occasion that engineering will let you just add on to an existing facility like that. The only time I think I've seen that done is when the sidewalk was actually the top of a culvert, and so it couldn't be removed. But otherwise, the whole thing has to come out so that you can make sure that the percentage slopes are correct across the whole width.
Thank you. Yes, John.
I don't know if this is a question or not, but I guess it is. I mean, I fully appreciate the rationale for applying existing code to new projects. But it just, I mean, it adds a cost when we have an affordable housing problem. And it's not like there's a bunch of other undeveloped lots left in this neighborhood. So I just don't really see the marginal benefit to the public good of driving the costs up for the last house up when I guess if somebody does an addition to their house or any kind of external modification, they'd have to bring it up to code, but you're just, it's not the purview, I guess, of the BZA, but it just seems that there's a practicality of all of this that doesn't seem to follow a sensible strategy.
I would agree completely with that. And I also know, I think the petitioner's been here before where we haven't granted this, and those have been in situations where it was older neighborhoods and there was an ability to connect sidewalks continuously. That made sense. This does not, to me. This, to me, is a flip from take it off Aaron Court, coming back to exactly what John said about they're going to offset the cost of the consumer. It has to be that way. Why don't we work with them to say, save your sidewalk, come back, save your sidewalk on Aaron, don't waste your money there. That makes no sense. Bring it back and then not require, if this was connecting to another 7-foot sidewalk, anywhere around there, because I actually drove by this site to look, there's nothing anywhere around, and those homes are not going to get knocked down and rebuilt. It's not going to trigger, those are 30 and 40-year-old homes. To me, that, I think the illogical aspect does need to be taken into consideration under number 3, because I think the strict application, the peculiarity is that there's nothing else around it that has 7 feet to connect to. And also the peculiarity is, I don't think, well, the Aaron Street is a side note, I guess, but I'm just putting that out there as kind of a midway, trying to figure out a way to make this work more logically.
Because, I mean, to your point, Tim, it's like, so you require a sidewalk stub into Aaron Court, and that's going to be it. I mean, there's not going to be a sidewalk. And I don't have an issue with requiring sidewalks around cul-de-sacs either. I think that's a public safety issue for sure. But when you've got a fully developed development, but for one lot, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to require that thefull deployment of the code, because then you've got, one house with a stub of a sidewalk, and there's not going to be a sidewalk connected.
Okay, well, let's take a minute and hear from the public, and then we'll come back to the board. Is there anyone from the public who'd like to make comment about this petition?
Yes, it looks like we do have one person.
Okay, and I'll explain to that person, if you can hear me, that what we'll do is ask you to state your first and last name, and then wait for a moment for me to swear you in, and then you'll have 5 minutes to speak. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay, state your first and last name.
Stuart Smiley.
Okay. Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You have 5 minutes.
Thanks for hearing me. I live on Azalea, just up the street from where this project is proposed. I also ride my bike on Azalea on a daily basis. And I just had a few comments. First off, I think this 7-foot sidewalk with an 8-foot setback would look ridiculous when compared with the rest of the sidewalks in the neighborhood. Also, these lots are not huge lots, and we're talking about taking up 15 feet of the lot for the setback, or the tree space and the sidewalk. And that's going to leave whoever ends up buying this house with a tiny little side yard. That doesn't seem fair. And then when I'm biking on Azalea, I can see, and my sidewalk as well, the sidewalks aren't in great shape. And there's even sections where there's no sidewalk for some reason. And so I don't think that this particular builder should be penalized for when the sidewalk there is in better shape than most of the sidewalks along Azalea. Yeah, that's all I had to say. I think the variance should be granted. And the part on Aaron Court, I don't even see what the point is of putting a sidewalk there. I agree that nobody's ever going to use a sidewalk on Aaron Court. It's a tiny little court. If you leave the sidewalk and you want to go to any of the driveways on that court, you're going to go straight across the court, not on any sidewalk. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public, either in chambers or online, who would like to make comment?
Yes. Sorry, there's one more. Jennifer Lentz.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Jennifer, what is your, I'm assuming I'm not sure who Jennifer Lentz is online.
Jennifer, are you there? I saw her check in at the beginning of the meeting.
Yeah. Jennifer, what is your name? Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not see you there on the other end. You should be able to speak now, Jennifer.
Okay, hi.
Would you please state your first and last name and then wait for a moment?
Yes, I am Jennifer Lentz.
And do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You have up to 5 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am also here to speak in support of the petitioner. I also live on Azalea Lane, kind of not right near Aaron Court, but down the street. And Stuart Smiley sort of said most of the things that I was going to say, but I would like to reiterate them. First and foremost, this neighborhood has been here for a while. The sidewalks in general aren't in good shape, and the only sidewalk that's really usable is the one that's on the other side of where this property would be. And that's because on the side of the street where the property is, there are portions where there is no sidewalk. So there are spaces that don't have a sidewalk. So for people who are walking in the neighborhood, walking their dogs or whatever, they don't really walk on that side of the street anyway. And to have a 7-foot sidewalk contiguous with a 4-foot sidewalk also seems to me very ugly. And while I know that this board isn't about aesthetics and what's appealing, but for the people who live here, having a 7-foot sidewalk when the rest of the neighborhood has a 4-foot sidewalk seems to me against the aesthetic of the neighborhood. And so for something that is not effectively usable and is also going to be kind of unattractive, I really don't see a lot of reasons to deny the request for the variance. And that's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else online or in chambers from the public who would like to speak to this petition?
I'm not seeing anybody else online.
Okay, very good. All right. With that, we're back to the petitioner. Do you have any final comments? You have a good deal of time left if you'd like to use it.
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, I'd just ask you to stand by there. We may have questions for you. It'll make it easier. It's back to the board for action or further questions of the staff or the petitioner.
Question for the petitioner. Why did you decide to not request a variance for the court sidewalk?
It was actually part of our original email to request both variances, but we
Okay.
decided to choose the one that we felt was, since like in one of them we're adding a sidewalk and the other we're just replacing one, we thought it would be a compromise. In hindsight, we should have requested, and we might come back, so.
Any other questions?
I mean, that would be my question.
Yeah.
To you guys, does it make more sense to continue this, even though obviously we have other things coming, but to come back with it because?
Well, realistically, either way, we can come back with a new variance on the Aaron Court part.
Yeah, but I think is that a 6-month delay?
No, so that would just be a new request. So there's only a delay if the petition is denied. So the board can certainly continue it if you want. The petitioner can request a continuance and they can modify.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but even if we approve the requested variance, he's then said he's going to supply the sidewalk. I thought it would be the
So
same
they
thing.
can come back and request a different variance, so it would be a variance.
In a month?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Well, actually, continuing would be better because I'm pretty sure we'd be pushed out another month based on the timing. Like, if I applied today, when is the
Yeah,
next
you.
I'm like way out.
Yeah, today was or tomorrow is the filing deadline.
So
for the
continuing
next
it might be better for everyone
That makes
involved.
sense.
And I would be fine with that.
So remind me again, what is it? Does the petitioner ask for that? Or
So
do
the
we-
petitioner can request a continuance, they just can't withdraw once a vote has been taken. So they can request a continuance and the board can grant that.
So no motion has been made, none is
Correct.
in front of the board at this moment, so the petitioner can request of this board a continuance? The petitioner can request of this board a
I
continuance?
would like to request a continuance.
Yeah, do we need to take a vote on that?
It would probably be good to do that.
Let's get a motion for a continuance, please. I have that and I have a motion. I'm sorry. I missed the second. Who got it?
Second, yeah.
Okay. We have the motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I call the question.
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Yes.
Kasinko?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes. All right, we'll see you next month. All right. Thank you for that. All right, we're on page 45 of the packet. And this is conditional use. CU-30-25, Matt Ellenwood is the petitioner, and if we could, please have a staff report. You're ready.
Good evening, Joe Patterson, zoning and long-range planner. So we are looking at conditional use to allow for a duplex in the residential small lot zoning district at 1004 South Palmer Avenue. As you can see, that lot and all the surrounding properties are zoned R3. From the quick aerial here, you can see some of the existing roof lines and materials. This duplex is being created through an addition to the existing home with an integrated carport separating the two portions of the duplex. The addition will run past the rear of the home along the alley on the west side of the property. There's an existing drive and parking area on the northeast corner of the existing home. And as you can see here, the alley on the left would run back to the new addition as well as that carport. And because of requirements from the UDO, with the carport access from the alley, the existing drive area would need to be removed so that there are not two drives on one property. The existing residence has one bedroom. The planned addition to create the duplex would have two bedrooms, one on the ground floor and one on the second floor. And as you can see from the elevations, where that carport would be there in the middle, separating the two, as well as the entrance facing the alley for the addition. So looking at our criteria, the following criteria, excuse me, all petitions are subject to review pursuant to compliance with the UDO and other applicable regulations. And we find that a dwelling duplex in this zoning district meets those standards, as each part of the duplex will have its own entrance. The existing and surrounding residents on the block face would have a similar roof pitch and design of materials. The duplex is not going to exceed bedroom allowances. And there are no other applicable regulations that would apply. For consistency with the comprehensive plan and other plans, comprehensive plan defines this area as mixed urban residential for future land use. And as this is an older neighborhood, there's expected to be a larger variation within architectural standards and designs, and also allow for redevelopment. And within the comprehensive plan, policy 5.3.1 encourages opportunities for infill and redevelopment. And this, by adding this addition to create a duplex, it helps accomplish those goals of the comprehensive plan. For providing adequate public services and facilities, adequate public service capacity already exists with the existing residents. By adding the addition to create the duplex, there is not expected to be any additional impact to utilities and those services, but will nonetheless be reviewed with a subsequent building permit. And for minimizing mitigating adverse impacts, we find there are no regulated natural or scenic features that would be impacted. The property is not in a historic district. And the owners did have a neighborhood meeting on June 2nd. And with those in attendance, there were no noted major objections and actually received general favorable feedback from those that were in attendance at that meeting. There's no proposed phasing with this plan. And based on those findings, we recommend that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt these findings and approve the conditional use with the following conditions. Conditional use is limited to the design shown and discussed in the packet. Requires the petitioner to pass a rental inspection from Housing Neighborhood Development and procure a rental permit for any units that will be rented. And then again, that existing drive and parking area on Palmer Avenue would need to be completely removed and that area seeded. And I am here for any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone, petitioner or petitioner's representative here? Whoever it is who intends to speak, go ahead and come forward. We'll sign you in all at once. So each of you sign in, and if you wait, we'll swear you in we'll swear you all in at the same time. Will you be speaking, or are you, okay, so just the two? Can I have each of you state your name into the microphone, please?
Steve McCracken.
Matt Ellenwood.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, very good. The first one can step forward, and then we'll give you an opportunity for 20 minutes to speak. Whatever you don't use will be reserved for later. Go ahead.
Okay. I think the only thing that I wanted to add to the presentation is we're designing it with Matt in a way that we'll be able to age in place. We're, older now, and we intend to stay in the neighborhood for as long as possible. So we will be able to live on the first level of that floor. It'll have low thresholds and wide doorways, and the bathroom will be accessible. So that was part of the rationale. We actually lived across the street at 1005 South Palmer and bought this house with the idea that there would be room in the back to do this. So I think that's all I have, but I certainly can answer questions.
No, I'm kidding. No, that's okay. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I don't really have much to add other than, the McCrackens have done a nice job with the property across the street. They fixed that up. It's a great contribution to the neighborhood, and they're looking to do something similar here. Like they said, a place for them to continue living and be part of the neighborhood. So, they're not looking to just, build something to make money on. So they've done all the proper steps to get here, and hope it'll be a nice addition. So, and I can answer any questions about the
Thank
design.
you. We'll withhold the rest of your time for later if you choose to use it. With that, we'll go to the board. Any questions or comments with the petitioner or the staff? Go ahead.
First, I appreciate what you're doing, and I always like to thank people for investing in our city. Was the decision to remove the little drive that's on Palmer, was that something that you guys wanted to do or were asked to do?
We were asked to do that. I don't know code that well, but my understanding was that there could only be one opening for parking, and we're intending a carport in the back off the alley, and so that would be the one. So we would have to remove that space in the front, which is fine. We do intend to rent the front, so they would have to park on the street. Palmer certainly can accommodate some street parking. There isn't much now.
So I guess this is a question for the staff then. I'm not as familiar with this part of the UDO. So even for a duplex that has entrances that are not necessarily the same, one's on one road, one's on the other, we can only have one?
Correct. For residential, single-family duplexes, you can only have one drive on the property, and especially since there's access from the alley, the UDO does specify that access should be from the alley.
What was the rationale for that?
It's just strict application.
Yeah, it's
of the
application,
code.
but what was the thinking behind that, only having one? Entrance, access point, place to go through, to get in.
Yeah, sorry, so the Area Greeley Development Services Manager, so the UDO is always, for single-family, only allowed one drive cut per property. It's only very rare circumstances for a circle drive that you're allowed to have more than one. So as the petitioner mentioned, because they were proposing a carport on the south side, they can only have one drive cut on the property, so they had to remove the one on the east side, on the street side.
Yeah, I mean, I could understand that rationale normally, but, I mean, if you got an entrance on, I mean, it's not like you're having two cuts on the same road, which I totally understand, but, you know, Palmer is just, it's a pretty tight area. So, anyway, it is what it is.
I'll ask, petitioner has no issue with that?
Obviously, we would prefer to have two, but it's not a deal breaker for us.
Okay. Any other questions before we go to the public? What we'll do then is we'll look to the public for any comments, if you give us a moment here. Is there anyone online or anyone in chambers who'd like to speak to this from the public?
Yeah, if there's anybody online, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat.
Do you see anyone?
I'm not seeing anybody. No.
No one in chambers. All right, so with that, no comments from the public. It's back to the petitioner. Do you have anything further you'd like to add here before we come to the board for action?
No. No.
All right.
I have a question.
Okay, we'll go to the board for comments, questions, or a motion.
So the new carport is 25 by 12, so does that mean it will fit two cars? Probably not.
We only have one car.
Okay. Well, I'm just trying
do-
to alleviate some of the parking situation. So with that, is the car, in the parking where the carport is, I'm not telling you to increase the size of the carport. Is it possible to park two cars there?
I don't believe so, because we're also contemplating room for bikes, lawnmower, a ladder, to clean. So the answer, I think, is no.
Okay.
But the structure itself does join between the two.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure because the drawing doesn't look like it, but the rendering does. So I wanted to clarify. Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the board before a motion?
I'll go ahead and make a motion to adopt the proposed findings and approve CU-30-25 with the three conditions as listed.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the petition with the three attached conditions. Any further discussion, or are you ready for a vote? No? Okay, I'll call the question. Again, a vote of yes is to approve the conditional use.
Burrell,
Yes?
Fernandez,
Yes.
Kasinko,
Yes.
Throckmorton,
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Okay, the conditional use petition passes 5-0. Congratulations, good luck, and turned out just terrific. Do we have any unaddressed business in front of the board tonight? Is there any new business that anyone would like to introduce for next? Okay. Seeing that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.